Lady had always made this fuss about giving her a fridge. Well, it comes to the reading of the will, and sure enough, this lady has left Barb her fridge. So Barb's like, all right, fine. So she takes a dolly down there, wheels the fridge from her house back to the house where she lives, starts cleaning it out. Sure enough, opens up the bottom, and it's a science project. I mean, it's a petri dish in there, right? She's scraping fuzz and foam off the sides, like, but she's like, well, that's great. I got a second fridge. It's awesome. She opens up the top, and next to the 70s, TV dinners that were still there, she sees in the back this huge, wrapped in blue tarp like you'd put on your roof during a hurricane, block. And her immediate thought is like, this lady loved her cheese. Look at that. She got it bulk, and she's wrapped it up and put it in the freezer. But upon further investigation, she hauls the blue tarp out, she opens it up, stacks of bills. She counted it up, $35,000 in cash. Y'all listen, if the cat lady in your neighborhood offers you a fridge, you say, yes, ma'am. Because apparently they're talking to each other, and that's where they keep the money. But isn't that great? I mean, a woman befriends another woman, invites her into her home, loves her when no one else will, and the woman gives her a fridge. But it's this fridge that provides for the needs of her home. Now, that's just a picture of one of the ways that God can do this. Everybody's going to be going home looking in their fridge. But that's what God does. He provides our material needs. Does everybody agree with me on that? So if you're sitting here this morning and you're still waiting for that provision, you're still wondering where it's going to come from, continue to wait. Trust in your God. He will provide your needs. Second thing is this. Read it. It says, I have also acquired Ruth the Moabitess, Mahlon's widow, as my wife. Lost in this, if we just kind of look at it as a pure business transaction, is the fact that Boaz truly loved Ruth. And in loving her, he restored or redeemed to her relationships. Ruth had lost her husband. If you're sitting here this morning as someone who's experienced that, you're a widow or someone who has been through a bitter divorce and is no longer united to that person that was one with you, you know how hard that can be. I mean, it's emotionally, relationally devastating. But here God, through his provision in Boaz, not only redeems all of the material needs that Naomi and Ruth had, but he also redeems the relational loss that Ruth had experienced in losing her first husband. Boaz is a great man. And God replaces what Ruth had originally had with something that I'm going to guess was a lot better. I mean, Boaz's name doesn't mean dying. And that's what he does for us. We might be sitting here and we are healing from the wounds that have come through relationships, whether it was a marriage that's failed or if it's a relationship between us and our kids or a brother or a sister or a friend at work. I mean, relationships can blow up. Has anybody ever been in a relationship that blew up? Okay, can I just assure you that by the grace of God, he will provide all of our needs, even those that entail our relationships. I love watching that happen. I had a buddy in Dallas, his name was Andrew, still is, and Andrew came to Christ in a miraculous way. He's that classic testimony where God took everything away from him. Everything. He and I met one night. We were reaching for the same chair at the back of a sanctuary just like this where I worked, and we got to know each other. I talked to him after, and in the week before he came to that service, his girlfriend that he'd lived with for 2.5 years, 3 years, told him that she was done. Kicked him out of their apartment. He lost his job the next day. It's like a country song, right? And when his girlfriend was done, spewing all the invectives that that she had to say about him, all of the friends that they had always associated with would have nothing to do with him either. He was friendless, relationship, no romance, no other, and had no job. He came in, he drove in. He was a North Dallas prototype. He looked good. He's a good-looking guy. Models good looks. He drove a BMW 5 Series and just had all the trappings, but nothing. You ever met someone like that? They look like they have everything, and they got nothing. And he came into this church I was pastoring at, and he said, hey, If there's anything that God can do to fix this, I would really love to know. And I got to share with him, the joy of knowing Jesus Christ, like I'm going to share with you at the end of this service, and he trusted him. And I watched as Andrew just step by step grew in his faith in Christ, but then step by step had things restored to him that had been taken away. Now, he found another job. It wasn't enough to pay for his Beamer, but he got a little clunker. It got him to and for him, But the relationships that he'd lost, God started to replace those relationships with people at our church. He started working with our youth group that I was a pastor of, and he just met kids and then other leaders, and they became his family. And I just watched as Andrew just grew. I mean, if you're not a part of a life group, get in a life group because God wants to rescue you relationally through life groups. And Andrew just grew. He's grown to the point now where he's gone on a few mission trips. I took him to Russia. That was a great story. I'll tell you that some other day. But he's heard the call of God. He's going to go serve God in Czechoslovakia, the Czech Republic. And he's actually driving trucks up in Alaska right now, across the ice, so that he can earn enough money and go and be a missionary without having to ask anybody else to pay for it. Isn't that great? But my friend Andrew is the example to me of this truth, that God can restore us, redeem us, rescue us relationally. If you're sitting here this morning and your relationships have been broken recently, trust in the Lord your God. He'll provide for you in that relational sense. These next three I want to do quickly. Here we go. It says, then the elders and all those at the gate said, we are witnesses. May the Lord make the woman who is coming into your home like Rachel and Leah, who together built up the house of Israel. Did you know that God can redeem your position? And in fact, if you have put your faith in Jesus Christ, that's exactly what he's done. I love going to professional sports events, and usually right before the game starts, there's announcements that come over the loudspeakers, and it says, as part of this promotion, we are having whoever's sitting in row 3 or section 330, row X, seat 2. Come on down. You've got front row. Have you ever heard this? The front row tickets are yours. And so and they put a spotlight on the people who are way up in the nosebleeds, like they're sitting behind a column, right? And the spotlight goes on them, and these two people who are like just glad to be in the building, can't believe they got tickets, are like, ah! Right? They're just screaming, barking at the moon, and you see them run down the aisles, and then like the next time out they say, and here they are sitting in the front, and they stand up in the front, and they're right on the glass if it's a hockey game, and they're banging on the window, and they're like, ah! They're having a great time. Yeah, that's what God's done for us, Did you know that? That God has taken us from the nosebleeds to the front row. He's taken us from the basement to the penthouse. That's what he did with Ruth, right? Do you hear this blessing that's being conferred on Ruth? These people are saying, hey, Ruth, may you be just like Rachel and Leah. You know who Rachel and Leah were, right? They were the two wives of Jacob, and from them came the 12 sons who would become the 12 tribes of Israel. Would we all agree that these are pretty prominent ladies in the history of the nation of Israel? Anybody with me? Okay. Well, let's go to Ruth now. Was Ruth an Israelite? No. She was from Moab. Was this her first marriage? No. Was she, anything in particular to brag about her? No, she was just, in fact, 2 chapters earlier, she was a beggar. She didn't have anything to her name. And now these blessings are being showered over her. May you be just like our matriarchs, Rachel and Leah. How is that possible? I'll tell you how it's possible. Grace. Isn't that great? And grace is this thing that's been given to each one of us. You know what it says in Ephesians chapter 2? That every one of us was dead in our transgressions and sins. It goes on and it says this, that you are in fact in league with, and the phraseology there is, you are in league with the devil. When you are not with Christ by faith, you are in Satan's army. How's it going? So I would say that spiritually speaking, is pretty low. You're down here. Maybe you're not even in the stadium. You're like down the road. You're not in the nosebleeds. You're not even near the state. But what God does is he says, hey, let's go out to the fields and let's bring everybody in. And by grace, I don't care what you've done, where you've been, who you've done it with, we're going to invite you in. And we're going to sit you at the table. You know what it says later in there in Ephesians chapter 2? It says, everybody who has put their faith in Jesus Christ is taken from that lowest of lows and seated at the right hand of the Father. You are given this place of prominence. You are seated You're like, anybody ever double buckled in a car? You're sharing the same seat belt? Probably not as adults, you haven't done that. Anybody ever done that with your kids, though? All right, well, okay, well, then this isn't going to work at all.